on, please. Mic's muted. And as we wait for everyone to trickle in, let's do kind of like some icebreakers to kind of see who's in the room. So if I call on you, tell me who you are, what you do, and what video game character you would take to dinner. And yes, y'all heard me right. Let's see. Who do we have in the audience? Okay, let's call on Alan. Yes.
Guys, I've been having some technical difficulties, so I finally got in. But my name is Alan Evans, and I'm a freelance A&R, aspiring music label A&R based in Dallas, Texas. In addition to that, I'm also a classical pianist, songwriter, and senior auditor at a public accounting firm. And the video game character that I would take out would be, I think, Link from the Legend of Zelda franchise. I love that game as a kid. I love it to this day. And I think that's, yeah.
That'd be awesome. Link at dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I always
Yeah.
see you at these events. Pretty cool. Okay, let's see. Let's hop to, let's see. Nicholas, are you there? You have your, you don't have your camera on, but okay, all good, all good. Let's jump to Abby. What's up? How's it going?
Hello, what were the questions again?
Yeah, of course. Just who you are, what you do, and then what video game character would you take to dinner?
Sweet. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Abby. I'm a music journalist at Finesse Media. And I'm trying to think of a video game character. I don't play a lot of video games, but literally the first thing that comes to mind is like a Minecraft zombie. I'm so lame. But
That's so fun.
them to dinner, I guess. I love the question, by the way.
That would be so funny. Just like, what would you be having a conversation?
There would be a conversation
with a zombie. Oh, also, by the way, my name is Danny, and I am a event coordinator at Finesse Media. I forgot to introduce myself, but yeah, that's who I am. Okay, let's jump to another person. I see Ezra Brown. Can you unmute yourself and introduce yourself?
Oh, hey y'all. Sorry, I can't have my video on right now, but my name is Ezra Brown. I am a artist, producer, student from New Jersey, Philly area. Yeah, just happy to be here every weekend and spending some good time with y'all.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Who else we got in the audience? I see Taylor Davies.
Hello, I just joined, so we're just introducing ourselves.
Oh yeah, so yeah, tell me who you are, what you do, and then what video game character you would take to dinner.
Oh man, well, hi, I'm Taylor. I'm currently a music business student, currently interning with Global Sophisticate Music as a music strategy assistant. And I don't know, I play a lot of like Nintendo and Warzone, so I'm not exactly sure what character I would take to dinner, but you know, kind of those games.
Sweet. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Who else? I see Jamel. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, it's Jamel. Hey, what's going on?
Awesome.
So my name is Jamel Brown. I'm a recording artist and a songwriter from Pennsylvania. And yeah, if I had to take a character to lunch, I'm gonna definitely take Cammy from Street Fighter because she's a straight baddie. And
yeah,
the vibes would be hitting, you know?
I love that. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Who else we got in the audience? Emma Marie.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Emma Murray. I'm a singer-songwriter from Western Mass. I used to play as a kid Lego Racers.
Mm-hmm.
So I would take a Lego character to lunch.
That'd be pretty cool. Would it be like a like a small Lego character, or would it be like life size?
Oh, good question. surprise me.
That would be fun. I see Tiffany Edwards. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Tiffany. I'm an artist manager. I'm currently managing an R&B artist by the name of Sturry John. And if you said a video character to take on a date,
Yes.
it would be Mario.
Solid. Yeah, thank you for coming again. Let's see, who else do we have in the crowd? Sienna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sienna. I'm a grad school student studying the music industry, and I would probably take Kirby on a date just because Kirby is like the original character from my DS games, and I think that would be pretty fun.
That would be pretty awesome. Kirby would be eating everything. Just
probably be an expensive date, but
yeah. Yeah, thank you for coming to this event. Glad to see you here. Okay, let's do a couple more introductions and then we'll go into the event. Let's see. I see Christina Meyer. Are you able to unmute yourself and introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Christina Meyer. I'm from Wisconsin. I'm a songwriter, and I would probably take Pac-Man to dinner and hope he would eat me.
Honestly, me too. That would be my answer for this question also. I don't know. He just seems like a cool guy. And I would definitely take him to a buffet. Let's see. I see Kevin Zito. Are you able to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Kevin. I am in Philadelphia right now. I'm a recent graduate and prior Finesse Media intern. And the last question is, what video game character I take to dinner?
Yes.
I'm gonna say Yoshi, just because he does that little thing with his tongue. So I feel like it would be fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that little sound he makes. Like, I don't want to do it. I'm gonna butcher it. But yes. Okay, one more introduction. I see Dimitri. Can you introduce yourself for us?
Sorry, I had two different mutes going on.
That's okay.
Hey, I'm Dimitri. I'm a singer, songwriter, producer, an artist, and I go by the name Moonly. Video game character that I would take out, man. So someone was talking about The Legend of Zelda earlier. I guess Midna's pretty banging. So maybe Midna.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Okay, I did say one more, but I'm gonna do just one more, like final one more. Shine, I see you in the audience. Would you like to introduce yourself to us?
Sure thing. Good morning, everyone. My name is Shine. I'm a producer currently based in Philly. And that was a really tough question there. You know, I was gonna say Yoshi before, but you know what? I will say I'll go with the niche character. I would take the Hollow Knight on a date because you know what? He seemed kind of lonely, you know, and he's yeah, I'm sure he's got a lot to say. So I think that'd be a fun date.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good answer also. Thank you for coming to this event, Shine. And yeah, that's it for the introduction. Let's get started. It's about that time. Thank you all for coming again and welcome to our Music and Gaming Partnerships event. My name is Danny. I'm an events coordinator at Finesse Media, and I'll be your host today. During this event, make sure to have your mics muted, and if you have the means, turn on your cameras because it's a great way to network and become a familiar face in this industry. Also, there should be a contact sheet going around in the chat, so if you find it, fill it out, and because that's also a great way to network. And then lastly, if you can, grab a pen and paper, pull up a Word doc and write some notes down because we're gonna learn a lot about the gaming industry and the opportunities that come with it. And just to go off of our agenda, we'll start off with an interview with the panelists. And then at about 1 p.m., we'll go into a live Q&A moderated by our very own Kit Kat, where we'll take questions from the audience and for our panelists to answer. And then, by the way, if you do have a question for the Q&A, please direct message Kit Kat with your question. She'll be the one reading your questions out to the panelists. And then after the live Q&A, we'll end our event with a few closing remarks. So that's the agenda. And yeah, I'm so excited for y'all to meet our special panelists. I want to very quickly give a rundown, a little introduction on who they are. So for our panel, we have Emily Kroll, who is a gaming strategic marketing manager at Lenovo. We have Frances Jensen. She is an attorney associate at Frankfurt, Kernet, Klein, and Sells PC. And then we have Matt Omler, who is a freelance journalist and musician. And then Anthony Demkin, who is the CEO of Library X. Yeah, and with that being said, I want to go around and let them further introduce themselves and what they do, and specifically where they fit in the music and video game industry. So let's start off with Emily. Hey.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm sure you'll very quickly learn that music and gaming are my two biggest passions in life. So I actually went to college to pursue both music and gaming. I did a double major in game and interactive media design and vocal performance at High Point University. And so I'm a classically trained singer, but I also can technically design video games in a team, not by myself. So I work at Lenovo. I'm the gaming marketing manager, which means I manage the Legion gaming PC brand. I manage our partnership with TSM, if you're familiar with Team Solomid. And I've also worked on our partnership in the past with Universal Music Group. So I've been able to work with artists like Lil Yachty, Louis Capaldi, Zedd, Taylor Swift, tons of different artists. So I'm really, really excited to be here. I feel like I'm going to learn a ton from the other panelists. So I'm excited to meet them next.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a panelist. Let's move on to Frances.
Hello, everyone. My name is Frances Jensen. I am an attorney. Our firm represents a multitude of video game publishers and developers, ranging from, a small team of indie dev with 5 people to AAA publishers with a team of over 500. And our firm, sort of does the gamut for these companies, anywhere from, corporate structuring, employment matters, as well as trademark registration and litigation. My day-to-day is handling, negotiation of contracts between publishers and developers who are teaming up to release games, as well as advertising and marketing compliance. And a good part of my practice involves music. I actually started my legal career reviewing music licenses for the Guitar Hero games. And so music has just sort of stuck with me throughout my career. So it's great to be here. It sounds like it's going to be a fun conversation, and I'm excited to learn from our fellow panelists.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks for being here. Let's see, Matt, how's it going?
Hello, I'm Ace, thank you. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Awesome. So my name's Matt.
Here.
I'm a freelance journalist specializing in the intersection of games and music. For a bit of background, I used to be in a band about 5 or 6 years ago. So I'm a musician myself. Like a lot of gamers, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater in particular had like a massive impact on me when I was growing up. If it wasn't for those games, I don't think I would have ended up in a metal band. My music taste would be completely different. So when I started out freelancing, I wanted to write about video games, but I was kind of like, I want to write about what I'm passionate about as well. Cat's come to join me. I hope you don't mind. So I've always had an interest in both video games and music. So now basically I just write about the opportunities that are out there for people in bands, within video games, kind of how the two industries are growing closer and closer together, and stuff like that, because I'm a huge video game music fan as well. So yeah, thank you for having me today. I'm really, really excited just to see what the other panelists are going to bring to this as well in terms of knowledge. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for being here. And then last but not least, we have Anthony.
Hey guys, I'm Anthony Demkin. I have a company called Library X, which is a AI-powered music library for content creators. And I got my start in the gaming industry. So I basically work at the intersection of music and marketing. And my first gig was making commercials for Nintendo. So I spent a handful of years making commercials for Pokemon, for all the Mario franchise games, the Wii launch, the DSi launch. And I've been working in terms of matching music to advertising and video gaming trailers for a long time. My company now, we've worked with Activision, we've worked with EA. And so my expertise really lies in finding opportunities to put your music into ads and trailers and promos for games and any other kind of media.
Awesome. Glad to have you here also. And I also forgot to ask you guys the icebreaker question. I saw Emily in the chat, you answered.
Mine would be Jigglypuff, because that's my favorite Pokemon.
That's a cool one. What about you, Matt?
I'm going to say Barry Burton from Resident Evil, just because I feel like he's seen some stuff and I want to know more about that.
And then Francis?
I was gonna say Yoshi earlier, and but I guess I would take, Luigi, just to get, the Mario Brothers other half and see how his career has been, being the brother.
Yeah, he has some stories too.
Yeah.
And then Emily, I know you said in the chat, but could you tell us again?
Yes, mine is Lee Everett from Telltale's The Walking Dead. Not sure who has played that game, but amazing story, caring guy. Top notch.
Top notch. Okay, so I want to move on to our next question. And that question is, from your experience, describe the culture of the video game industry and what it's like to work within it. So for this question, I want to start with Francis, my bad.
Yeah, so the gaming industry, just like any industry, certainly has its issues, but fortunately, I've had an overall very positive experience. And the core of this industry is that it's centered on this form of entertainment that challenges you to, work through puzzles and make you think and overcome obstacles. And even in games with co-op, to collaborate and connect with others. So it's, especially this last year, it's been a great form of escape for some, but it's also an amazing way to meet and bond with new people all around the world. And because so many of us in the industry play games ourselves, there's often this collegial and team spirit that carries over from being a gamer. And so I think that's really what's resonated the most with me, in being able to connect with people with these interests who like to work together and solve problems and sort of, get the highest achievement and level up together and sort of support each other in that way. So that's really my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely this past year, I've played more video games than I should. Okay, let's pass this question on to Anthony.
Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, the question was, from your experience, describe the culture of the video game industry and what it's like to work within it.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective might be a little different just coming from the marketing side of things, but I think historically, when it comes to music, if you're talking about big game publishers, they seem to be kind of spread out and hard to navigate. The different departments within a game publisher don't always talk to one another. So for example, if you're an artist and you want to get your music into a game, that's a whole other group of people than people who get your music into a promo or a trailer for a game. So that's kind of one insight is, the big gaming studios are a little hard to navigate if you're trying to network or pitch to them. Smaller gaming studios, like any small company, are just a little more chaotic, I think, easier to access, but harder to pin down sort of thing. And, generally speaking, obviously everyone's like really passionate about gaming, but I think, for artists specifically who are trying to get their music into games, it's really important to understand like how these companies work and who's making those decisions. And also, I think one thing that I've always worked on like the marketing side of it, which happens at the very end. But more recently, I've realized just how long like a gaming development cycle is. And I think some people don't really think about that. Where you're like, oh, you're working on a new game project, like. That could be like years of work, and a lot of times, the music piece of it comes like towards the very end. And then the third thing, or fourth, or whatever, is there's different types of music that goes into a game depending on the gameplay, depending on like the game engine that's being used, which is really interesting. Like I'm very fascinated by adaptive audio, and that's a whole other can of worms than like songs that get placed into the gameplay itself, in the way that it works and the people that work on it. So those are just kind of some of my thoughts and things that I think are kind of fascinating at the intersection of gaming and music.
Yeah, I actually have some questions with what you were saying. You said there are a lot of moving parts, and so with an artist and a musician, where do you think they should like who do you think they should contact if they want like music in a game?
Well, it's really hard because if you go after the big game publishers, they only have a handful of music people. Where like, EA has like one head of music basically, and you can imagine if people can find her name on the internet, like how many inbound requests she gets. So that's not always the best way to go. I think if you have traction as an artist, it's easy. It's like better, if you're an indie artist and you can easily rattle off some stats that'll differentiate you. Let's say you've gotten a bunch of streams, you've had a song go viral on TikTok, something like that. Maybe you'll catch somebody's attention with a cold outreach. But I think it might be a little better to go through people that pitch music to games and already have those relationships, and that just goes back to where in the process you want to be. I mean, if you want your music in the marketing side of things, there are sync agents out there that do that, and they work with TV and film and advertising and gaming as well. If you want to be in the games themselves, I mean, I feel it's like just networking with people that work at those studios, not necessarily the music person, and then getting to know them well enough so that they can introduce you to some music people. Because at that point, it's a whole different introduction versus you trying to hit up a person who's probably getting, hundreds of like songs and albums and links every week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, y'all heard that. Network. Okay, I'm gonna pass the question off to Emily, the original question about like describe the culture of the video game industry and what it's like to work within it.
Yeah, I would say that Lenovo is kind of adjacent to the gaming industry and where I work. And so we would consider ourselves an endemic brand that is thrown around a lot in the places I play in. And so we, of course, support the games being played with our PCs. And so they're through the partnership with TSM and through our partnership with EA and the Apex Legends Global Series, I have that kind of side door and sidestep into the gaming brands, and everything Anthony was saying, everything that Francis was saying totally resonates with me. I would totally agree with all of their sentiments there. So coming into the gaming industry as a whole, I did, honestly, I'll be honest with you guys, I felt a bit discouraged to go directly to a game developer and try to get my foot in the door there, which is how and why I ended up at Lenovo. I have plenty of friends who have started out at game developers that graduated, the program with me from High Point University, and they end up a lot of times in QA. A lot of people spend a few years in QA and then working their way up. So you hear some horror stories, especially as a woman in the industry. But at the same time, that was also kind of my motivation for going into it. So all of that being said, thankfully, my experience, like Francis, has been nothing but great things. Everyone has been super kind and welcoming. But everything Anthony was saying about the structure of the game developers, especially the big ones that are cranking out AAA titles, they are so fast paced, chaotic almost, because there's so much that goes into creating a game, and there's such a long timeline on the back end, and so everything's moving so quickly to keep up with times, and at the same time it's kind of difficult to make decisions at times because there's so many people being factored in. So thankfully, my experience has been nothing but positive in both music and gaming industries, but I've definitely heard my fair share of horror stories, and there's a reason why I got my way in the side door through Lenovo.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing your experience. Let's move on to Matt.
Yeah, so as a freelancer, I guess I'm kind of like on the outskirts. So I'm going to speak from the perspective of mainly the people and the type of people that I speak to, which is mainly audio teams, music teams, and they're probably the nicest, most passionate people I've ever met. Like, I've never met a single person working in games audio who hasn't been a pleasure to deal with, which is cool for me as a writer, because obviously I'm going in there to learn more so I can write whatever it is I need to write. And I come away from most of these calls just like my mind is being blown. Similar to like what Anthony was saying with like adaptive audio, like 3D audio, spatial audio is like a huge thing right now. So I've been learning loads and loads of cool things about that. As far as game audio is concerned right now, audio professionals are in a really, really cool place because they've got this next gen hardware to play with, which is like opening up so many new doors in terms of what they can do with the music in these games without sacrificing like graphics or anything like that. So yeah, just everyone I've dealt with personally has been absolutely awesome. And then because I'm kind of like in the video game music community as well, as like a really passionate community out there of people who do covers, original music for games and stuff like that. Everybody's so supportive, like sharing people's like music on Twitter and social channels and stuff like that. So personally, I've had nothing but a really good experience. It's been really cool.
That's super cool. Yeah, the video game industry has such a cool community. So my next question is, what opportunities do video games have for artists and music professionals? And what should they take advantage of? And also, what advice would you give them going into partnerships, a partnership deal with video game developers? I know we kind of dived into that a little bit. I'm going to start off with Matt. Can you start off this question for us?
Yeah, I will start by saying I've literally written an article on how to get your music placed in a video game. I spoke to about 6 or 7 different people for that. It's up on gamesindustry.biz. If you search how to get your music placed in a video game, gamesindustry.biz, it should come up. There's some really, really useful advice in that. And there's so many different ways you can go at this. Like, it's difficult just to kind of give like one piece of advice. So I'll share some of the things that I've been told that I think would be useful. One is, if you're going to make a cold approach to an A&R person or a head of music or whatever else, and I'd always recommend going with someone on the A&R team rather than going for someone like Steve Schneider or something at EA. Like, go small, because obviously you've got more chance of your email being seen. Give them everything they could possibly need in that initial email. Don't waste your time and be like, just want to know if you're open to submissions right now, because there's no point. They could come back and say, yeah, they might just ignore it. Just give them everything you want to give them in that initial email. One of the biggest things that I've learned, as Anthony was saying, like, there's music for in-game and there's music for trailers and everything else. If you have the stems to your music, that's always a huge benefit, because the chances are that whoever gets your music is going to be chopping it up and playing it around with it if it's going to be in a trailer or something like that. Francis is definitely best placed to comment on this as opposed to me, but as far as rights go, be very careful with your rights, know who owns your music, make sure you own your music. If you're an indie artist with no label attached to you, that can be a good thing sometimes. And also, if you've got new music coming out, if you're planning on releasing something in the near future, consider how video games might actually fall into your marketing plan. Because everything that I've seen now, there seems to be a thing where game studios are kind of like, they're using new music from bands as kind of like a marketing point for their game. So they can say, let's say, for example, the new GTA features debut tracks from Boom, 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 Boom. Like, video game companies like having music to debut in a game. You're seeing more and more of it. And I think you will find from the people that I've spoken to, it seems to be the case that they would always rather use new music because it's an opportunity for them to push the artist and do something cool with them. And they've said as well, if you're in a band and you want to get your music in a video game, capitalize on that opportunity if you get it in. I spoke to someone at Codemasters about a band who got a track in there, and like once they got their track in the game, they completely went with it. They made a music video using footage from the game, completely earned the opportunity. That put them in the good books of Codemasters and stuff like that. Probably means they're going to get more work in the future. So there's quite a lot of things there. And I'd say more important than anything, don't be a dickhead. Be a really good person to work with. Like, nobody likes nasty people. Nobody likes people who are difficult to deal with. Like, if your sound, speak to people the way that you want it to be spoken to yourself. Like, I think it's the same for any industry, but in the music industry in particular, because people talk, word gets round. Like, be sound, and it'll pay its dues.
Awesome. Francis, what do you think about this question?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely plenty of opportunities. It just depends on what you want your career to look like. So if you want to be a recording artist and you want your music to be featured in a game, then you want to license your music. So you'd control your rights and you'd license it to a video game developer. If you're a composer or songwriter and you want to create new music for a video game, then you seek out composer opportunities, and maybe you hire a managers or agents who specifically work in this space. I know while I was at Activision, as Anthony was saying, there's one head of music there, so they're getting inundated with submissions all the time. But if they have these connections to agents and managers who can sort of pitch them, okay, we're looking for a score for Call of Duty. Okay, here are some composers who might fit that bill. Okay, now we're looking for a composer for Crash Bandicoot, a very different type of vibe. So they will pitch different composers for that. And I think these networking events, of course, are a great way to meet those people and sort of make those connections. And as Matt was saying, don't go for the big guys, the big heads of these big companies. Like, try to reach out to people who work in the marketing department and can sort of get you an in, and talk to the music department once you get to know them. And then I guess one of the most important things is, if it helps if you play the game, if you're familiar with how the game works, if it's already out. Not only will that give you brownie points with the developer, but it's so that you understand what you're being asked of, what you're expected to do, and also how it affects your rights. So if you're hired as a composer, most of the time the developer will want to own all the rights, but you'll get, back-end royalties if there's a soundtrack album released or something like that. And then, more recently, we've seen in games like Fortnite, where there's integrations with the artists who appear in the game. And so there's lots of things to think about with, how you want to appear as a character in the game, or how you want to appear in marketing with the game, if it comes to that level. But I think just doing your research on the developer and understanding what their game is going to be about. If you have sort of this personal branding that you want to uphold, you don't want to be associated with a first person shooter, then maybe don't go with a developer that develops those games. And, there's plenty of opportunities to get your music out there. So just do your research, and, these events certainly help to make connections and learn more about the industry as a whole. And as Matt was saying, like, be a good partner, be willing to collaborate and work with the developers, and be open and understanding to what these opportunities may bring to you.
Also, can I piggyback on that?
Yeah, of course.
I just it just reminded me, Francis, what you were saying. Like, in addition to all of the networking advice, just remember that it's also like a long game, right? A lot of times, like I network with music supervisors all the time. Like, I sell music at a high level. I represent artists. We also have like a music library product that generates, background music for advertising and trailers. So I'm selling music all the time. And what I've noticed is, like, these relationships take years to build, especially if you don't know the person originally. Like, if you're talking about a cold email or even an introduction through someone, sometimes it takes years before anything happens on that. And you have to be kind of prepared and committed to that. And so Francis had some really good advice about, like, being nice and also being kind of knowledgeable about the person and what they're doing, and periodically giving them updates. Like, if we're talking about artists, you as a musician should be making music, putting up all kinds of music wins in your career, and then periodically updating everyone that you're talking to on those wins, so that in their mind, over months, but probably years, this story gets painted about your trajectory as an artist. And at some point, something will come across their desk, and it's like, I think it happens subconsciously. People are like, oh, there's like a Spanish guitar artist that would be perfect for this. It's been emailing me for years. And then you get an email back from them, but it like takes a while, but it's, if this is what you want to do, like, this is how people do it. So it takes a long time and it takes a lot of effort, but it's worth it if you really love it.
Wow, yeah, it's all about that long-term relationship, long-term networking. Emily, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with everything that was shared so far. And if I can share a piece of advice on what not to do, it's kind of been touched on by the other panelists. But for example, there was one year where I was at TwitchCon, I was working the Legion booth, and I'm trying to manage the event, manage the customers who are coming into the booth. And there was a young kid and his mom who stopped me and wanted to talk to me for 30 minutes about how this kid was making his own music. And they made me pull up my phone and follow this kid on all these social media. I told them that I was a singer, that mother made me sing to her on the floor at TwitchCon because she was like, wait, it's just us. We want to hear it. Needless to say, it was a very uncomfortable experience for me. It took me away from what I needed to be doing at the event. I felt so uncomfortable that they made me pull out my phone and start following this kid. So that is totally what not to do. That did not end well.
Oh my gosh. Man, people, yeah, we're all people here. Like,
am I frozen?
Oh yeah. We can hear you now.
I think I froze. Okay.
Hello?
Well, that did not end well. So if I could say what not to do, that's it. But something that you could try that might be an innovative new platform for you to connect with your audience in a new way is Twitch or YouTube or Facebook gaming. There is so much music going on those streaming platforms. I just did a quick search on Sully Gnome. There are tools that exist like Sully Gnome. I could put the link into the chat. There you can decide on your strategy of how to reach the most viewers at peak times when people are really tuning into music streams. But over the last 7 days, there has been 5 million hours of music streaming consumed on Twitch. That's just 7 days. And over the last year, 272 million hours of music streamed on Twitch. So if you are looking for a way to connect with your audience, a way to even get advice and collaborate with your audience and learn what they want to hear and what they want to see from you, it is a direct link to to those people and a way to get your name out there and build a following in a different way. Especially if you're interested in gaming too, you could be a variety streamer, you could tie the two together. There is so much opportunity within live streaming.
Awesome. Yeah, and with Twitch, it's like that. Twitch is such a great place to see like the convergence of music and gaming, and which this brings me to my next question, which is, how do you think like these converged industries will look into the future? Yeah, I'll start off with Emily since you were already talking a little bit.
Sure. It's been a wild ride to see how much gaming has grown even over the last 5 years. So when you look at the entertainment industry as a whole, and you might consider, you know, gaming, music, film, television, that type of thing, gaming far and above is the biggest of those entertainment industries, with music and film following close behind. But you know, the gaming industry is really next level right now. So in the future, I definitely see music and gaming continuing to trend in a similar direction, especially with the effects of COVID and the last year, and how Fortnite, like we've already mentioned, has been bringing concerts into the game. We've been seeing more and more music and gaming collaborations pop up, especially with one of our partners, UMG. Like they did the Katy Perry and Pikachu music video, the Post Malone and Pokemon 25th anniversary. There was a Summer of Sims concert in The Sims 4 where they had different artists performing in The Sims 4. Obviously the Ariana Grande and Travis Scott concerts in Fortnite. I think that it creates such an amazing immersive platform for artists to be sharing their music and for people to really get involved in that experience in an up close and personal yet virtual way. So I think we're going to continue to see more and more concerts coming to games themselves, and continue to see developers building that into their marketing strategy, as well as on the other side, artists building that into their marketing strategy too, to just spread the wealth. The beauty of gaming is the immersive aspect. That's why we get so into games. That's why they're so enthralling to us as people, is because you immerse yourself into that experience. So tying the two together, I definitely see it just continuing to soar, especially in this post-COVID world.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, whenever the Ariana Grande concert came out, I was like so obsessed with it. And then
So
Lil
good.
Nas on Roblox too. That was
Yes.
pretty cool. Yeah, so I'm excited to see like other artists doing collaborations like that. Let's see, let's pass it on to Anthony. How do you think the future of music and gaming will be like?
I mean, I think a really interesting trend right now is that pretty much everything in sort of the creative world is going into creator tools for people to make their own whatever. So it's like Roblox is a good example of a platform that lets people make games. There's another company that we work with called Manticore that does the same thing. Like there are these like game creator engines that are going to come out. And so I think there's going to be this phase where pretty much, you know, now it's like everyone's a gamer. It's going to be like everyone's a game developer. And so what does that really look like? When you're no longer, there will still be like huge titles that everyone plays, but then there'll also be games that you and your friend made that only you know about, maybe with a bunch of inside jokes about like your friendship baked into the game. And I think with that in mind, you know, in terms of like how that relates back to music and artists, there'll just be more opportunities to get creative, you know? I mean, like you could easily make a game and then have that be your entry point as a pitch. You know, you're like, I made this game and I put a bunch of my music in it, check it out. Things like that, you know? But also I think a lot of those platforms are gonna have to think about music in a totally different way, because historically music's been very linear in all media. You know, I have a song, I'm gonna put a song here, in a trailer, in some gameplay. This is why like adaptive music's so interesting to me. And obviously we have like an AI music engine that we've been developing, but it's because it makes music a little more dynamic and a little more kind of alive and real time. So I think there's going to be more opportunities for different types of formats of music coming into play in these sort of building and creating environments. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be libraries of music that people who are developing little games that are easy to develop are going to tap into, and someone's going to be curating those libraries.
Awesome. Yeah, the interactivity with the music and then the projects kind of make the projects more alive, I would say. Matt, do you have anything to add on to?
I found myself having less and less to say the more people talk, because they're all really good. They're all really good things. A couple of things, I think, kind of like building on what Emily said, we're definitely going to see more of these concerts. I'll go out on a limb and say this. I think we're going to see virtual concerts in the likes of Call of Duty Warzone and stuff like that soon, because I think any of these games and service games where you've got a player base of millions of people, they're all consumers who could potentially discover new artists, go on to buy merch or whatever else kind of thing. There's like a really lucrative market there within these like free-to-play games, where if the right bands and artists can get on board, they've got millions of new people to reach with their music. VR, I think something will happen sooner or later. I don't think we're quite there yet. There was a really cool company called Wave, who were doing virtual reality performances. They're still doing concerts, but I think they've dropped the VR now, because I just don't think I don't think the infrastructure's there yet, to be honest. And then I think in terms of what Roblox is doing as well, kind of like similar to what Anthony was saying, in terms of like giving creators the power to do their own thing. I think there was a Monster Cat world recently in Roblox that had something like 2 million visits or something daft within the first couple of days. Like, because at the moment, all of these concerts like Ariana Grande, Travis Scott, it's like, they're cool, but unless you're in a huge band, let's be honest, you're not going to get in Fortnite, and you're probably not going to get in Roblox. But if there's a platform there like Roblox, where if you've got the development know-how, where you can build your own digital world and you can sell DLC and stuff like that, like these in-game cosmetics, which is, let's be honest, that's where the money is kind of thing with these transactions. Like, there's a really lucrative infrastructure there for smaller artists. I think we're going to see more collaborations, in particular between musicians, labels, managers, and developers, because like Anthony was saying again, like, there's going to be more people building their own things, and they need to know how to do that kind of thing. But the opportunities are just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, I think someone really high up at Sony said a year ago, I think on the back of the Travis Scott concert, saying they're looking at what they can do now within the virtual concert space, and they've not announced anything yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if PlayStation have their own platform sooner or later, Microsoft do their kind of own platform or something, like, because all of these big companies will want to earn that, so they can be the one doing these concerts themselves. But yeah, the opportunity is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's really, really, really exciting.
It is super exciting. And also with these virtual concerts, it's online, so everyone in the world can kind of join in. So that audience is just huge. Yeah, so Francis, do you have anything to add? What do you think the future of music and gaming would look like?
Yeah, just to echo everyone's sentiments, these in-game integrations and crossovers, I think, are just going to continue, and it's going to add to this concept known as the Metaverse, where all different aspects of entertainment overlap and are sort of experienced in one platform, which, that's what Roblox is doing, that's what Fortnite is doing, and they're integrating. They're having album launch parties in these games for artists to sort of release their music in this exclusive, very interactive way. And then they're also, making in-game content based on these artists' brands and selling, as Matt was saying, different merchandise based on that as well. And it's just going to continue to grow. And I think they've seen a lot of success, so I don't think they'll stop anytime soon. But I also think that music rhythm games won't go away either. I mean, it won't have the same heyday as Guitar Hero and Rock Band, but if you have your own music and you want to create a game, you have the content. If you're a music creator, you have content, and you just make those connections with game developers, and you collaborate, and you put out a game based all around your music. We have a client recently who's been working on that. They have their own music and they're putting out this music rhythm game. So I think they're definitely hand in hand, music and video games, and I don't think it'll slow down anytime soon.
Yeah, the sky is the limit here. Anything could happen. Before I go on to my last question, I want to mention after that we'll have a live Q&A. So if you have any questions for the panelists, direct message KitKat with your answers so she can ask the panelists. And so for my last question, y'all, what kind of projects have you been working on recently? Like, what are y'all excited about? Anyone can jump in on this one, because
I'll jump in. One of our clients who's big in the esports space, they have already historically become, very integrated with other, of course, gaming and technology brands, but also lifestyle, clothing, and food and beverage brands. And now they're looking to sort of start their own sort of music arm within their company, which has been very exciting. And so helping them think through where they want to take this music business and how they want to use the music that their talent that they represent, how they want to use the music that they create, and sort of thinking about, what rights go to the different contributors, to the artists, the producers, the side artists, the songwriters, individual who writes a hook for the song, and being able to see the opportunities there for that business. Another project I'm working on is sort of it's not really music related at all, but it's this new technology where the game engine itself is sort of streaming live to an audience that interacts with the game. So there's this interactive overlay where the audience sort of, chooses their own adventure, but it's basically polling the audience, and it affects what happens in this game, which is it's going to be exciting to see that and what sort of other opportunities that might bring.
Oh, that's so cool. I love interactive stories. I know, Anthony, you mentioned your Library X and the interactive music stuff. Also, could you go into depth about what kind of projects you're working on with Library X?
Yeah, I mean, we're still pretty early. We developed a good chunk of our technology last year during the pandemic, where there was nothing going on and people had a lot of time on their hands. So, historically, if you wanted to have music in a game or any media, there are three paths. You hire some composers. For game studios, you hire like an army of composers. Or you have a music supervisor who goes out and finds music, and those are the people that artists email all the time, and they place pre-existing, pre-recorded music. And then there's what's called library music, and library music is it has many names, but it's like stock music, royalty-free music, background music. It's not necessarily famous or well-known, but it's functional, so there's a lot of background music basically. And so that's historically been done by composers or artists, and we decided to build some technology that can make that kind of music, and that's what we did most of last year. And so we have a beta product out now, and we're confidentially talking to a couple of gaming companies and advertising companies that make gaming trailers, and we're also considering building some tools for game developers. So like a music plugin for Unity and things like that, because what we're really trying to do is turn the conversation from one song at a time to music as a feature. We have an API, and you can basically turn a spigot on and send us parameters, and we send back music based on those parameters. So from that perspective, I'm really excited about kind of deeper integrations with game developers. And we also work with artists. We use human-made music as kind of building block. So an artist will give us some musical ideas, and then we'll use our engine to scale it and create finished tracks on the other side. So, but we're pretty early to the game, so I can't really talk about any public wins just yet. But there's a lot of real, conversations going on that we're really excited about.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool to like have your music kind of interact with other music as a musician. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. It's actually pretty wild. We basically get like loops, samples, and unfinished musical ideas from a bunch of different artists, and then our engine understands how they work musically and mixes and matches them into finished tracks. So a lot of times on the other side, we were like, I would never put those drums with that melody, but it seems to work because our engine like doesn't break any music theory rules, but it has no artist bias. So I think when humans put different things together, there's always a bias, but our engine is basically like, if it works musically, I'll do it. And so that creates a lot of really interesting results.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Emily, what projects have you been working on?
Yeah, lots of gaming stuff, of course. And so most immediately or most quickly approaching would be like an Intel Gamer Days. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Intel Gamer Days, but it is a big sale and celebration of PC gaming. So just yesterday, Dr. Lupo did a really amazing stream for the kickoff where he was accompanied by a live orchestra while he was playing his favorite games. And so they're playing along with him, like the symphonic music, and he is like literally getting like watery eyes, like tearing up on stream. So there is a video, I believe it's on Intel Gaming's YouTube channel, if I'm not mistaken. It could be on Dr. Lupo's, but that was really amazing. So we've got some really exciting stuff coming up in the next week. We're doing a gameplay meet and greet with TSM Snipedown. That's next Friday. So if you're an Apex Legends player and you love Snipedown, join our stream next Friday. It's at 1 p.m. Eastern. And then the next thing would be Supergirl Gamer Pro. So this is an event in Oceanside, California. The dates are the 17th of September to the 19th of September. It is free to attend, open to the public. It's at the Oceanside Pier, and it's a celebration of women in traditionally male-dominated industries and sports. And so at this event specifically, there's a all-women surfing competition and an all-women esports competition. They also have, I believe, a DJ competition, again, all women. And they'll have some pop stars. They had amazing performances in 2019 from Natasha Bedingfield to Neil Arts, just really, really amazing women artists that will be there. I'll be speaking on another panel about women in the games industry. And so if you're local to California and you can make it to the event, please do come out and see it. It's going to be a really, really awesome integration of gaming, surfing, music, yoga, DJ, everything. So please do come check that out. It's going to be great.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so cool. I'm going to write this down somewhere, but let's pass it off to Matt. What have you been working on?
Unfortunately, nothing I'm allowed to actually talk about right now. I've got 3 articles commissioned, but I can't legally talk about any of them. Something else that I've been doing though, which is cool. I started a podcast for the first time, which is something I've wanted to do for ages, and finally just decided to do it. So it's me and my friend Matt, who plays guitar in a band called Neck Deep. We basically just get people in from bands to talk about their favorite video games, favorite video game soundtracks, and just again kind of looking at the relationship between the video game industry and the music industry. So that's called Load-In. You can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the usual places. And other than that, spending way too much money on building my video game vinyl collection, which is getting quite dangerous now because so this is another cool thing. There's so many companies now releasing old game soundtracks as records, which is sick because this is a thing that dates back to the 80s. Like Japan had like a huge video game music record scene back in the 80s. Over in the UK, we had a company called Data Discs who I think kind of like started things off at the same time as another company called I Am 8-Bit, pressing the likes of like Conker's Bad Fur Day, Perfect Dark soundtracks to vinyl, and now it has just like exploded. There's like so many video game records out there, and my wallet is bleeding. it's bad, but yeah, that's what I've been doing.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh. Okay, so well, this concludes our interview portion of the event. You guys were so cool. I'm so glad to like have this conversation with you. Next, we will have our live Q&A, and so I'll hand it off to Kit Kat.
All right, everybody, thank you so much. Can we all unmute ourselves and give like a woot woot for how awesome this panel was?
Woot,
Yeah.
Love the energy. Thank you all so much, and thank you to our awesome panelists. So now I've received all the questions, and I'm actually going to let everyone who's asked a question mute themselves. I'll call on you when it's your turn, and you can ask your question to our lovely panelists. So, 1 second. First and foremost, Sienna, would you like to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Yeah, so do you have any advice for someone who's interested in getting into sound design for video games? I don't really know where to start with it. It seems really cool, but I just like, I don't know how to get into it.
I'll kick this one off. I'm curious to hear about what my other panelists are thinking. But for me, I had mentioned that my degree is in video game design and music and vocal performance. And so when I was in school and working on game design, I ended up taking on the role of really the composer for the games and the sound designer for games. And so I was doing a lot of Foley art and creating different sound effects for games, as well as developing original scores for the games that we were creating. And so my advice would be to try to find maybe even just some indie games, or if you know friends who are into game development or have been working on something, ask them if you can get involved. Just kind of take the initiative and do what you might think, or do what you think would sound nice in that game. Try creating some Foley art, try doing some research on how different sound effects are created. That is so cool. And the different props that they use in order to create the different sounds, especially like in violent games, crazy. So if you've got some friends or even just on your own accord, doing some research on smaller indie games and testing the waters as far as pushing your creativity to the limits, and making sure that you can figure out what sounds like what, and try to develop your own scores. And from there, you can try to socialize those things, do some streaming on Twitch, put it on your own Instagram feed, and just try to really get your project out there. That would be my advice. Just test the waters with something small and work up from there.
I'd say the exact same thing, having recently interviewed a video game composer who started off as a sound designer. So basically went to university here in the UK to study music, and just to study music actually. Met loads of people on the video game course. Obviously started working alongside them. It helps that he was massively into video games as well. But I think, if I remember rightly, he actually got his gig as a composer and a sound designer from meeting a group of developers at a conference. They had their game there on demo. He played it, completed it, loved it. They got talking. He already had a showreel and a website and stuff like that, which obviously helps. He got tasked with creating, I think, some intro music for the game. He did that, and then he ended up being the audio director on the full project. So yeah, I think put a showreel together. Definitely do some research into Foley if you haven't already, because it is just really, really cool just learning how all of these sounds are put together. Have some fun experimenting, creating your own kind of sounds and stuff like that. Maybe take scenes from films, from video games, take all the audio out, put your own audio in there to see what it would sound like, use that as like a show reel as well. And yeah, network, get talking, and hopefully things should come together.
Awesome, thank you. I see, Anthony, you're unmuted. Do you want to answer this question as well?
I mean, pretty much most of the stuff that Matt was saying. I think if you want to get into any creative field, you find people who are doing it already, and you hit up enough of them until somebody gets on the phone and tells you like how they got into it and what their experience is. And then from there, you figure out how to get some work examples, like everyone's saying, a portfolio. And if you don't have an avenue to do paid work or even like free work that's going to be out there in the world where you can point to something and say like, okay, my sound design was in a mobile game or whatever, then you can do what people call like spec work, which is exactly what Matt was saying, which is like you can find a game or a piece of video and strip out the audio and do your own, just to show people what your work looks like. And then if you're not at the point of doing that yet, then that's a whole other journey, which is like, you know, going and experimenting and learning more about it and making a bunch of stuff until you develop like your own style and approach, and then going back out to network and trying to get that in front of people. So, I mean, basically same thing, but yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for your question, Sienna. Up next, we have Nico, who's actually asking me, he's coming in from Argentina, first and foremost. So thank you, Nico, for being here, and would actually like me to ask his question. So let's see. He has a question regarding how to deliver music in the gaming industry. Is it the same as the sync TV industry, or does he need to know about programs like Fmod?
I'll start with what I've got very limited knowledge of Fmod, and again, this is what I've taken from recently interviewing a guy who just composed his first video game. He said it definitely helps to learn stuff like Fmod if you want to be a video game composer, because we're talking about composition here. It helps. I guess it depends on the game you're working with, because there's so many different styles of games. Like, you're not going to need to know Fmod from back to front if you're working on a basic linear puzzle game, or maybe certain types of mobile games or something like that. If you're working on something more ambitious with adaptive audio and stuff, or if you want to get a job at a big studio or whatever, then yes, you probably are going to need to learn the likes of Fmod and stuff like that. That's what I've been told. So I guess short answer, yes, it definitely helps, but I wouldn't pin everything on it. Don't limit yourself in terms of opportunities by kind of going, I'm not ready yet because I don't think I know this and that kind of thing. Like, get the basics down, and if you're applying for jobs, if this is what the question is kind of based around, like, you can learn stuff while you're there as well. But yeah, definitely have a basic understanding.
Awesome, thank you, Matt. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you so much, Nico, for your question. Appreciate that. Our next question is actually on a similar vein. What's the best way to discover who the music supervisor is for the game that you would like to pitch your music to?
I'll jump straight in on this again, if that's right. Right, so I've got a tip. If you want to find anyone's email address, as long as they've got a LinkedIn account, you can basically find it. There is a website called Rocket Reach where you can search for people's email addresses. You can use that. Obviously, as a freelance journalist, I need a way to get in touch with people. So I use that to find a lot of PR emails that I need and stuff like that. Yep, someone's just said in the chat, Rocket Reach is great. So Rocket Reach, use that. I think more than anything, like, do your research. In terms of what not to do, never find a group of people who you think might be a good contact, BCC them all in one email and just hit send. Like, that'll just get you blacklisted. Like, if you're going to email someone, spend ages doing your homework, check game credits. Like, that's the first place to go. Like, if they've worked on a game before, they might be mentioned in the credits. The information is out there. And if you Google the right search phrases, it is actually very easy to find. And yeah, definitely make any email you're sending to anyone specific to them. Don't group emails, because it just looks like you don't care if you're sending one email to a bunch of people and just trying to get a hit from it.
Yeah, I'll just jump on and add on to that. What Matt mentioned about looking up the credits of a game. Moby Games is a website that a lot of times lists credits for games, and you can find out who works in music on a specific title. And then, you know, sort of do your research, make it personalized for sure, as Matt was saying. And as Anthony mentioned earlier, just, you know, be sort of persistent and patient, that it will take a long time and it will take multiple opportunities to reach out and sort of make that connection.
Yeah, I would agree with all of the advice given so far. As someone who is on the receiving end of a lot of pitches all of the time, I will say that it goes a very, very long way if you do include something personal about that person, maybe something you've heard from them or something you've seen them do, and let them know that you are paying attention to what they're doing. And in addition, gosh, I think it was Anthony earlier who said, put it all out there in your one email, because it could be your one shot. And so when it comes to like other companies pitching attached with their idea, their email is going straight to the trash bin. You know, like we need to see it all. We want to see it all laid out. And we want to know that you know a little bit about us, why you're reaching out to us. And so not that I'm on the specific music side, but as someone who receives a lot of partnership emails all of the time, that is definitely something that goes a long way with me.
I'd say as well, try and think about the soundscape of the game that you want to get on. Like if you're in a heavy metal band, a deathcore band, a grindcore band or whatever, like your music probably isn't going to be the right fit for FIFA. Like if you're in an indie band or a folk band, that music might be a good fit for Life is Strange. Like think like if you're thinking about sync in particular, like where would your music sit? Where would it sit right? Where would it not feel out of place? Because that's really important. And that's an important part of doing your homework and doing your research as well. Because if somebody gets an email and it kind of goes, hi, I'm whoever, here's a link to my tracks, I think this would be a good fit because I'm familiar with the franchise and I know that you've featured artists like X, Y, and Z that have a sound like. All of that info shows that you've done the legwork and the groundwork and that you care and that you really want that opportunity.
Awesome. Did that answer your question, Antonio?
Absolutely. That was great advice. Thank you so much.
Perfect. We have a couple more questions for you all. So I'm going to pass it actually to one of our interns, Donna. Do you want to ask your question?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Donna. And my question is, one of my favorite games is Detroit Become Human. And I love that the soundtrack in that game is separated to be specifically used for each character. So I was just wondering how your roles would tie into something like that. Is that a team effort with considering the different aspects to the songs? How does that whole process work with your roles?
Anyone can start.
I think it would probably depend on the studio. Studios, as Anthony was kind of like saying earlier, like studios all have different sized music teams. Like EA has quite a lot of people working on A&R and music and sound and everything. Indie studios, smaller studios might just have one person in charge of music. So I think in a case like Detroit, where it's kind of like assigning certain melodies to specific characters and character themes or whatever else, I'd say if the opportunity is there in the actual game company, if the position exists, probably the music director or somebody on the creative team, because that's a very calculated thought kind of thing, and that goes into the whole world building. The narrative director will probably be involved as well, because again, it's all storytelling and stuff like that. So I guess to answer your question, there would be no set way of kind of doing that. I think it would depend on the makeup of the music team, who the developer is as well, and I guess also the publisher, because sometimes they want insights on stuff like this as well. So I don't know if that is an answer or if it's not, but I hope that kind of helped.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Donna, for your question. I wanted to pass the mic to Taylor Davies. Did you want to ask your question to our panelists?
Yes. Thank you so much again for this panel. My question revolves around the question of, do you think the artists will create with intent for the games, or the game is secondary to their music marketing process? So how do you think that commercial artists will find the balance between creating music for performance, but for games as well, And do you think that composers and artists will start to incorporate new elements into their music to diversify themselves from the competition, or stay true to their original intent? Because a lot of artists and bands will start with their own sound before they're contractually obligated to take input from other sources, such as a label. So how do you think artists will create going forward, like with a different mindset, diversifying their sounds, etc.?
How are we defining commercial artist?
I guess just like any artist, a band, a
Who's
solo
making
artist.
music? Any artist who's making music for like fan consumption?
I suppose so, yes.
Okay. I mean, I personally think that an artist should not be thinking about any of that when making music. I think like when you make music, you should figure out what it is that's very unique about you, what you want to say with your music, and then make it in as pure a form as possible. Unless you want to like specifically make music for sync licensing or advertising or something like that. But even then, I mean, I work in that world every day. A lot of times the things that I place even in ads are things that you would never think would go into ads. Because these days, I think like in-game placements is one thing, but like trailers and promos is all about getting people's attention. And we have none of it. I mean, we have less attention than a goldfish does these days, just because like the internet and social media has robbed us of our attention span. And because of that, every choice that people make to create any kind of content, especially promotional content, is all about grabbing people's attention. And so the music's role a lot of times is like, you know, surprise the person, like grab the person's attention. I mean, a lot of music briefs that we get for music assignments from advertising agencies and like promo companies is like, play me something I've never heard before. And I'm like, but we've all heard everything, you know? So to go back to your original question, I think like when you're an artist getting ready to make music, you really want to tap into like this very personal, intuitive part of yourself that makes you uniquely you, and then try to communicate that in your music so that your music is like as unique as you are an individual, because that's really the only way. I mean, it obviously has to be good. There's like objective good qualities to music, but when you come to the subjective qualities of how good the music is, it's really about like how it conveys your unique perspective, because then other people will identify with that. It'll have an emotional response. And then all of this advice that we've given you on the business side will go much smoother. So I would just say like a blanket statement about if you're an artist trying to promote your music or whatever, like the music has to be good before any of this other stuff. If you're out there researching who's, you know, music supervising at gaming studios and making spreadsheets and all that stuff, and your music is not super unique, or it's not well produced, or it's not good, then, you know, all that time you're wasting is not really going to like have a result. So the music has to be really good. But if the music is good and you have like a very unique thing to say, then you can find like what the opportunities are that align with your personal flavor. You know, that should be the lens that you're looking at it through. Hope that's
Yeah,
helpful.
that makes a lot of sense. I'm on the music supervision end, so I'm curious to see going forward about bands who are already established, if they will start to incorporate different elements that will lead them to, you know, possibilities in the sync world and with games.
No, I could definitively tell you that they will not be doing that. I work with established artists quite often. I mean, unless someone gets hired specifically for that. Like once you're making money touring and making records, those are your two modes of existence. You tour, you make records, and then you rinse and repeat. And so, you know, you have a label that has a sync department and they pitch your music, but you are not making music for those pitches if you're a like commercial artist, if you're a performing artist. Unless someone is like, hey, can I give you like a bunch of money to make something for me? And I recommend people never do that, because it like never ends up being as good as someone just making pure art for pure art's sake. And then everybody wants it because they're like, oh, that captures an emotion. It's really hard to like fake that. So no, I think when you're established, you make art and you tour on the art. Now they do little tricks to make music that's like more popular, or, you know, can garner like a fan base. but they're not thinking about sync opportunities or placements in video games or anything like that.
I think to add to that as well, I think it's testament to kind of like the bands that have found themselves scoring video game soundtracks. Angus and Julia Stern, they're doing the new Life is Strange game. I think that's because they've got a very unique sound that falls nicely within that like folk indie acoustic Life is Strange world. You've got Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails, he did Quake back in the day. Like, you're not going to find anyone else with that horrible industrial sound kind of thing. So I think focus on creating original music, and I think these sync opportunities like will come kind of thing, because you'll have like a video game company kind of going, right, we've got this world and we need a unique sound that matches that. And it's like anything, like you can see through bullcrap at the end of the day kind of thing. Like if you're writing music with the intention of just trying to place it somewhere rather than writing music because it's something that you're passionate about, I think you can hear that in the end result kind of thing, as opposed to like creating something pure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Taylor, for your question. We're going to wrap it up with one more question from Nico. Do you want to ask your question? Go ahead, Nico.
Just to be clear, it's the other Nico, not the first one that you almost gave me a heart attack.
Yes, you,
but
Nico.
yes, me, Nico. I just wanted to ask, because I've always been passionate about understanding how music is composed in video games, and if there's a community opportunity to understand that, if there are opportunities for collaborations of learning music making processes from other people in the industry.
Real quickly, I'll jump in and give you a couple of. So, are you on Twitter? If you are, there's so many people doing covers of video game music, and also the composers. I'm just having a quick search now. Video VGM moments, VGM together, VGMDB.net, video game. Just if you just search like video game music or VGM on Twitter in the search bar, all of these accounts will come up, and it's just full of people just like sharing music. It's really supportive. And if you're interested in the theory side, there's a really cool YouTube channel called 8-Bit Music Theory, where it's a guy just looking at kind of like how everything's put together in like these old video game soundtracks. And like some of the theory behind it is like mind blowing, and it's really cool. So definitely check out Twitter, definitely check out all these YouTube channels as well. But yeah, the community is awesome. Like I was saying earlier, like it's so supportive. Everybody shares stuff and you can learn so much cool stuff. So yeah, Twitter, I'd basically say search on Twitter.
Awesome. Thank you. Emily, Francis, Anthony, any of you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of any like big communities for that. I've historically heard like small groups of people getting together for something like that. So if there's someone local or someone you meet that, you know, is interested in the same kind of music as you, and you're learning together, and maybe there's opportunities to collaborate, like I would try to find people that you align with on a vibe level if you're trying to learn and collaborate together. People that are passionate about the same kind of music as you, things that you have in common with people, and definitely like what you're saying, the same level of experience, right? So that you can learn, or maybe you know some things, they know other things. I mean, like I don't know exactly like what your strengths and weaknesses are, but a classic example is like, a lot of us were classically trained musicians for whatever reason as kids, you know, like our parents put us in music and then we just kept doing that. Well, this is what happened to me. And then when I got out of college, I was like, all right, well, I love music, but like, I don't necessarily want to be a performer professionally. So then I collaborate often when I make music with people who are more proficient in technical aspects of production. They're like good engineers, they're good at, you know, digital production. I'm like mainly a performer, you know, so I can sing, I can play drums, I can, you know, but I hate sitting in front of a DAW all day, like noodling on a track. it feels terrible to me. So I try to collaborate with people who actually enjoy that process.
Awesome. Thank you, Anthony. Emily, Francis, any concluding thoughts? Okay, Francis, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, if there are songwriter conventions that sort of have, maybe a panel like this, music and video games, that's just another way to meet people and sort of connect with people of your like mind.
Perfect. Yeah, from my perspective, even what Francis said, but on the gaming side, things like TwitchCon and PAX, they have music-focused panels, music-focused events within the event as well. So there's plenty of networking that can be done at gaming-focused events as well, where you can make some really, really great connections in the industry, because it's not only consumers and individual contributors, indie artists and things who are there, but it's all industry professionals as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Nico, did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely did. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for your questions. Thank you to our panelists for answering said questions. And we're going to have our fearless leader, Alexi, wrap things up for us.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Oh my goodness, this was such an awesome panel. Wow. First of all, I am such huge fans of every single person on this panel. Anthony, I saw you speak at the Music and Gaming Con last year with Aminotes. And then Matt, I've watched a lot of your videos just from you as a musician and as a journalist. Francis and Emily, I can't tell you how excited. So right now we have a cohort of interns that are all women. And I can't tell you how excited we were to just see 2 women panelists that actually responded, because we were having such a hard time getting responses from women. So we were so grateful. We are so grateful to have all of you to have spoken here today. And Kit Kat and Danny, thank you so much for leading this panel today. Emily, Matt, Francis, and Anthony, anywhere we can find your stuff, or would you like to leave us with some places that we might be able to find your stuff, whether that's YouTube, Instagram, your platform, your own personal platforms? Anyone want to just jump in and plug themselves really quickly?
I'll kick it off.
Ladies first. Go ahead, Emily.
Ladies first.
All right, cool. I do stream on Twitch occasionally. I'm at mcroll on Twitch. I've got all different handles on everything. I really got to figure this out for myself, but mcroll on Twitch, Emily J. Kroll on Twitter, just Emily Kroll on Instagram. I can put it in the chat if you guys want to connect with me, but thank you so much for having me. Anthony, I'll pass to you.
Sure, yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Antony, A-N-T-O-N-Y, Loves Music, or Twitter, Antony Music. And obviously you can follow Library X, that's Library X Music on all platforms.
Awesome. Francis?
I'm not a big social media person, unfortunately, but I'm on LinkedIn and you can definitely connect with me there.
Awesome. And Matt?
Just Matt Ombler with 1 T. I've just smashed it in the chat. And then, yeah, if you want to give the podcast a follow and a listen, if you're into video games and music, that's Lurd-in, just Lurd-in. That'd be really cool.
Amazing. So that pretty much wraps us up for our event today. Thank you everybody for joining. Just some quick announcements before we head off. So obviously, for those of you who have been here with us for a while, Finesse Media has been hosting events for music industry insight for the last year and a half. And we've had over 5,000, over 6,000 attendees in the last year and a half, which has been really amazing. We do this every single week. Next week, we're hosting an LGBTQ plus representation panel with Bryce Xavier, Boyfriend. Who else, Tammy? Tammy, if you're still there. Tammy is our host for next week. We're also having Lynn Casper, and then Tammy, who's the last person?
It's Lynn Casper, Bryce Xavier, Neen Bowen, and did I miss?
And Boyfriend, yeah.
Boyfriend.
Awesome. Yeah. So we've got some really big names coming on next week, and that's especially for all of our Finesse Media community folks. And then the week after that, we're doing a VIP TikTok social media workshop for any of the folks that are part of our community. A couple of other really big announcements for Finesse Media. We recently received some amazing opportunities to partner with 3 different organizations. The first organization is Amethyst Collab, which is a women's organization in music. So we are going to be running their operations. So thank you to Slice Kiwi Beats, who also privately messaged me saying congratulations. We also have another announcement that, and this literally all happened within 2 weeks. I'm telling you, this is crazy. The second announcement is that we are now a TikTok marketing partner. So we're partnered with the Sapphire Apps, which is the marketing agency that's also partnered with TikTok. So we're going to get a lot of insight into how to utilize the platform for artists. So that'll also help all of you. And then the last announcement is that we are also partnered with the Stadium BK, which is a studio out in Brooklyn in New York City. And anyone who signs up through Finesse Media to go do a recording session over in Brooklyn with us will get 15% off any of their sessions. And that is with or without an engineer. A lot of our engineers are multi-platinum record producers, so you're gonna get really great quality stuff. So thank you all for being a part of Finesse Media. We are so grateful and honored, honestly, and even to our speakers. If you ever need anything from Finesse Media, please come to us and let us know. You definitely have friends in us. But that concludes our event for today, and we hope to see you all next week. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Francis, Matt, Emily. Bye, y'all.
Bye.